Y'all, I just had an amazing conversation with Charlie Dishman, who is a high school science teacher. Now, for me, this is like super personal because my first career was being a teacher. I was a high school teacher and I loved it. I left to pursue like a more creative field, and then a few years later, I got gifted some epilepsy. And I've always said, oh, I could never teach and have epilepsy. And Charlie is proof that you can. And I can't wait for y'all to hear this conversation because they worked their ass off to make sure that they could still do the thing they love, which is teach. And I am so inspired by Charlie, and I will never say again that I couldn't teach with epilepsy. Before we dive in, though, I really want to give huge shout outs to the community partners and sponsors who believe in us: Norellis, SK Life Science, Epilepsy Foundation of America, the Danny Did Foundation, and Epilepsy Alliance America. Thank you so much for believing in What the F. Okay, y'all, here we go. Hey, Charlie, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to chat with you and for everyone to hear your story because it's pretty fucking incredible. So thank you for taking the time out in your very busy schedule.
Oh, well, thank you. We just finished finals, so yeah, it was a little bit busy.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah. So how's the grading with finals?
It's it takes time. You have to go through it. It depends on, what you decide your final is going to look like and what you're going to put into
Yeah.
it. So, and
When I was
then
a teacher, I
yeah,
always made the mistake of making it essay finals. And I was like, why? Why did I do that?
you just
Like,
have to have the time. You have to like plan the time of when that's going to be. So,
yeah, I wasn't very good planning back then, so it did not go well. It was a lot of all-nighters. But congratulations on being done, semester one. And as you know, you are a teacher, a high school teacher in Portland, which
mhm.
is so amazing. Just because I used to be a teacher. I love teaching. And I love teachers. And I have talked to so many people who have fought for their jobs, who have fought for accommodations, for themselves to be safe. Two things that you have done like amazingly. And I can't wait to talk about what you've done so it can help other people. But before we do that, I want to talk about the why. Because I just feel like and this is just me projecting, if it had been me, I probably would have walked away from teaching. And I admire so much that you didn't. And I just want to know why, like what teaching means to you, why you kept fighting for it. Cause it's been a long, long fight. And you're like, no kidding. I was there. But yeah, just what is like, what is it about for you?
Well, like I got inspired to be to be a teacher probably, and I went to outdoor school, and so I got to practice what teaching looked like out in the natural environment, and so
Wait,
I
what's outdoor school? I've never even heard of it.
it's something every Oregonian does in sixth grade, and they go and they spend a week at a camp with their classmates, and so there's a lot. Then you get to be a student leader up in high school time, so I got to spend a couple chances there, and that's when I started kind of veering towards like maybe not an architect, maybe not this, maybe not, then, and I was like, oh, I think teaching is where I'm at just because of the connection piece. And it really is
Oh.
the connection piece.
Mm.
And a lot of times it's not just the connection that you're with these students, but that like, I teach science, and if they come out of high school and they really don't fully, after they take my class, grasp all of biology, as long as we're learning more about like how to be civil human beings, how to like
Yeah.
have good conversations, how to be able to support your ideas, and how to, I don't know, support each other as a community, because a lot of that is like trying to do community building too while learning biology. And so,
Yeah.
but the why is there, and it's wanting to be there to support them and guide them in some ways. I think people think about it like coaches and mentors and guides, and there's a lot of ways to think about what a teacher is, but it's not me telling you, it's me, putting these options kind of out there, and you kind of choosing how the student is going to choose how they're going to pick it up. And
Wow. I
yeah,
love that. I love that because you're like, I'm not trying to like, I'm not filling their heads with ideas to say, do this. You're like providing critical thinking skills and community based skills. And Oh, Charlie, you're just pretty fucking amazing. Not gonna
Well,
lie.
I'm attempting to. My dad, there was a time when I could tell him he didn't want me to be a teacher just because he knew the stress level that came along with it. And since I've had my epilepsy since I was 8, he you could tell there was a time, but he let go, and he supports me tremendously. But he would have loved it also if I would have picked something else
Well, and that's okay. So
as
that's
a
kind of,
father. Okay,
yeah. So
like,
was he a teacher? Because so many people don't know
no,
how stressful teaching is. He's just aware. He's just like socially aware.
he does a lot of research too.
Okay. Oh, that's great. So how long have you been teaching now?
uh,
Ish.
it's about 15 years of teaching.
Wow. Your journey is just something that I've never really heard of before. And I would love if you could talk about like kind of where it started in relation to your epilepsy.
Well, so I've had epilepsy since, like I said, I was 8, and it changed so much throughout my life. There's lots of big changes, and um, one of those big changes came when I was about 23, um, uh, somewhere around that age. But I had this big kind of like flip change where I was having lots of seizures. It just all of a sudden started and changed what time I was having the seizures a day, and then also that I was having lots of them in within a day. And it stopped me from like finishing school. So I couldn't finish to get my bachelor's, which I had to get before I could start going into teaching school, my master's school, right? For education. And so just finishing that, like just trying to like make it through what time that went. So as I was healing from that, and it got better, went through different treatments and different things that helped with that. But I was able to then finally take a little bit of a break and then get into my master's program. And but then I got hit hard with uh, as I was going into my master's program, which is student teaching, so you go into a classroom. I also wanted to do this certain treatment that was starting to be really effective, but for me to continue with it, the doctor said, we can't have you in this program unless you're going to be in a wheelchair, like most of the time.
Wow.
Like you're going to move around the world in the wheelchair. You're going to spend your days in a wheelchair. And that was just because I was falling so much that it wasn't worth it to them for me. I was a liability.
Like
So
fall risk
anyways,
situation.
I was a fall risk.
Yeah.
Yes, I was a
Yeah.
fall. I
Yeah.
was 100% a fall risk. And so it did a lot, like being in a wheelchair, which I mean, I lived in the wheelchair for those, like, not quite a year, but like I would say
Wow.
8 months. Anyways, I was in this chair for a while, and I was realizing, I was like, oh, I mean, first of all, just what it's like to be in a wheelchair. You're like,
Yeah, I
damn,
was just thinking,
this table's at a really bad height, or like this door really doesn't open itself, like it says it does, and all those things.
like the
But
perspective. I
yeah, so
can't
that,
like not that I'm saying it's worth it or I'm not trying to silver line this at all, but I'm just saying like that just must have like been like holy shit, now I see a whole other disability side
yeah, it was
perspective.
very eye opening. I was very
Yeah,
eye opening in that
I bet.
situation. Yeah, yeah. And so we got, so what it looked like in the classroom then is once I got into a classroom, is that I would be standing up teaching, usually in one spot, and I would just lock my wheelchair. So if I was to have a seizure, I would just fall backwards into the chair.
Oh
And
wow. So
yeah,
how did you approach it like with your
well, I mean,
students?
I went into the classroom, I met them, and I told them the whole situation. I mean, I pretty much let them know that I was in this chair for this other reason because of my epilepsy, and I explained what
Mhm.
that was. And so for that class, it was different. I had to like just explain the reason who I was, because you get to do that when you're a student teacher. You're like, this is who I am, and I'm
Oh
coming
yeah,
from the school, and
this is student teaching, which is
yeah,
like you haven't even
no,
started your
no, I don't have
career.
a job
You
yet.
yeah, you
just
don't have
trying to just trying to get
oh my god.
experience in the
Yeah,
classroom.
gee. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, and they were very considerate middle schoolers. They were it was eighth grade, and they were a very sweet class, the very first one I went into, and it was the hardest part was just getting around. I had to take it was just trying to figure out. I mean, I obviously don't drive. I don't drive now, but I still had to figure out, okay, how am I going to get around with this chair? And it was just different, trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I moved around the classroom and it was real tight, like I could go to table from with my chair, but it was a very tight move of where I could go because there just wasn't a lot of space. And I
Yeah.
had to figure out what that looked like. So I had to arrange that the science experiments happened in certain ways so that I had my chair nearby. Okay, so this is the
Mhm.
thing. Like I have enough of an aura, and I did at that time that it was definitely. I could tell I was having a bad day. Like if I'm
Mm.
not feeling well, having a bad day, I would keep it at maybe change exactly kind of what we're going to do that day,
Oh,
which
smart.
usually you
Yeah.
don't do. Like as a student teacher, it's pretty set up, and you spend a lot of
Yeah.
time in the class. You spend a lot of time learning how to like do the plans and come up with
Mhm.
like what is this going to look like and what's the flow and then you read all that stuff. So
And how did your superiors like respond to that? I'm just so curious because I
uh
know not all of us
yeah,
had lovely student teaching experiences. Not that yours was. I'm not trying to like put this on you, but I just
right.
know like I don't know, I dealt with some really old curmudgeony men who were kind of assholes. And
Yeah, and that's something I learned over time is that people have different views of seizures and what they are. And yeah, so the very first time I tried to get into a classroom to just get experience, and this was before I needed the wheelchair. I just needed to get like observations and stuff. The person that
mhm.
was at the administration that was at that school was not happy with me being there. They were concerned that I was going to be somehow like it was going to cause if I fell, then it would be a problem because I'd be one more adult person in the room not watching the students. So eventually we just didn't go with that school because they
Mhm.
were not being. It was really hard to work with them, and so that aside, ended
Yeah,
up at
that
this
had
other
to just
place.
be so like, especially I just think of how young you are and like you're
Yeah.
starting your new career and then hearing like, "Oh, sorry, your health issue is a problem to us." Like,
Hmm.
oh, fuck them. Sorry, I said it, not you. Okay. I'm going to try and reel back. I'm sorry, Charlie. I'm getting so angry.
Yeah, it was
Let
very
me
angry.
take
It was very frustrating at the time because I
Yeah.
couldn't get what I needed because I needed these hours, like to be
Yeah,
able to complete my schoolwork. I'm like, I need to be in the classroom for a certain amount of hours. But
right.
then luckily for my set student teaching for my master's program, I was able to find a group that was or a people that was really nice. Both the lead teacher there and the admin understood, and
Awesome.
mostly because I was already in a chair. Like they were like, "Oh, you're gonna take care of that," Like
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess."
Yeah, sure. So then how did it go when you graduated? You've got your teaching degree. Um
Uh,
and like in as far as like getting jobs and ones that like would accommodate or wouldn't accommodate. What
yeah,
does that look like for teaching? Again, this is like totally I'm trying so hard not to project my own experience, but I
yeah.
clearly am because all I can think about is when I was a teacher without epilepsy and how I've never thought I could be a teacher with epilepsy. And then I see you and you're doing it and not only are you doing it but you're like a really amazing teacher just in how you talk about it and then also like you fought so hard to stay here even though you faced so much. And so I want to just talk about some of the stuff you faced that like really but you're still here and you're still teaching.
Um, getting well, like I think a lot of people, when you start like into the program, into trying to find a job, you have to make that decision. Am I gonna talk about this at all during the interview?
Mm,
And usually it's a
yeah.
no. It's like you just kind of hold that in until you
Yeah.
sign the papers. And that's how it was for me. And so I
And
made
I
that
yeah.
choice.
And I want to
Um,
just pause on that because,
yeah,
like, there are so many young people out there who have said, well, isn't that lying or isn't that, dishonest? And it's not. You don't legally, I think that's just so important. You don't legally have to disclose your disability in a job interview.
right.
And I think, like you said, it's so smart to wait until some paper is signed, until there's a contract, because then if they try and release you, then it's illegal.
Hmm.
So I think that's so smart. That's something I I didn't know until I should have, you know. And so I think that's again just a great example that you're setting.
Yeah, so it's hard because you have to hold it. You hold it, you know it, but you don't know if you have the job yet, right? So it's still
Yeah.
that back and forth. So I interviewed for a couple different jobs. Ended up getting one at a middle school. Started there, um, and yeah, it was the first day I like sat down. I'm like, I need to talk with you. So and I sat down with the admin and I said, this is what's going. This is what I have, and and sometimes there's been cases at certain jobs because I have a couple different jobs throughout where I have an admin who's like, oh yeah, my brother has epilepsy, like, and could kind of talk and understand him, like, oh, just let us know what you need.
Mm,
And then other ones are going, okay, like, don't know what to do with that information quite yet, but it works. Um,
sure.
so it's gone, both ways on like the interview and kind of check-in part of that.
But
Um,
didn't you also have an interview where you're wearing an EEG?
okay, well that was yes. So that
That's
was
like
one.
so
Okay,
badass. Oh my god.
so it's so funny. Yeah. So that one was where I got offered an interview and I was in the middle of putting on one of those traveling EEGs. So the EEGs that goes into the backpack.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
right. And so
Or
I
a
was supposed to,
briefcase. I've had the
or,
crossover
or
briefcase
yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a thing where,
Something
like
fun and
you've got
stylish.
EEGs on your head with wires coming off all down into a cord
Yeah.
into like a little pack, right?
Yep.
And you take it home for a day and then you come back and they take it off. And that's really what it is. But um, the only time they could do the interview was that day I had them on. I was like, okay, are you sure there's no other day? And I'm on the phone with these people going, are you sure? And at this time I still don't have a job, right? So I'm like
Right.
I would like a job, and
Yeah.
I would like to interview. And so I went and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have EEGs on my head. Yeah, I'm going to have these electrodes on my head. I'm good. Like, this is and they're like, okay, then we'll know who you are. And I was like, yes, you will. And so I interviewed. And after that interview, I kind of feel like any interview is piece of cake. You got that. But yes, I did it.
That's so
It
impressive
didn't,
that you still did it. I'm not gonna
I
lie,
didn't get
that's
the
really,
job,
yeah.
but honestly, it was a math job. And I probably, I mean, I'd much rather teach science. I'm certified to teach math, but I would much rather teach science.
Yeah.
Um, so
Feels,
I don't know.
yeah,
That
meant to
probably
be
came
anyway.
across. Yeah, if that probably came across in I don't know, my speaking and about it. So
Right. We're not saying anything about anyone's hiring practices. We're just saying
yeah,
you didn't get the job. It was meant to be. You didn't get the job, but it was really baller for you to go in wearing an EEG. I love that.
yeah, yeah,
So like how does that look when you tell your students you have epilepsy? How do you feel? How does that go? Because like I have
yeah.
anxiety. If you can't tell, I'm like nervous
Right.
talking right now. I'm like, "Oh, how do you do it?" And just like
Well,
walk us through it.
well, usually, so I have like a slideshow set up now. By now, it's already all on like on a slideshow and it's both my life, like, and so that becomes very obvious. And so I share a little bit about my family, and
Mm,
then also like my epilepsy. And so it goes through like who I am, what I like to do, because I'm your teacher for the rest of this year, so might as well meet each other, right? And so I
so
have it
sweet.
set up on a slideshow. I start talking about it, and then and I said I also have epilepsy. So I show some pictures of me in the EMU, like having, EMU stay kind of thing where I'm there for a while, just with different pictures of me, with electrodes usually or something like
Yeah.
that. But also like, so I have this it's in my brain and it acts this way. And I talked about what epilepsy is and I said, and it's still here. And it, it, something that might come up. And I explained to them that actually right now it's pretty nocturnal. So it probably won't see anything just because mine are all at night at the
Oh,
moment,
fun.
which is completely opposite. I know it's fun until you fall out of bed, right? It's just like
No,
it's a
no, I'm
safe.
sorry. I was making a terribly dark joke.
No,
Yeah,
no,
no.
it's back and forth on that one. But yeah. So it's a slideshow, and I just go through the whole show, and I like say what to do if I have a seizure. So like the first a little bit like a quick slide on the first date, what to do, and you'd say, okay, watch the time, call the front office, which they know how to do, and then get the adult next door. So you have like three people do that. And so I've told kids this, yeah, since probably a couple years in. The first couple years I probably held on to it and didn't share that in the
Mm-hmm.
same way. But the more I've been through teaching and the more I'm like, this is me. Yeah, here we are. This is
Yeah.
like, we got to work with this. So let's make it work. And so I teach them about it. And then once I share it, I kind of just wait and hope for acceptance. And it's this very sad point of like, I hope they like me. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
but it's truly how it feels. It's like
totally.
you just kind of like, they do that and they usually just move on. At first they stare at you, hoping like that they can see something. Like they're like, am I going to see a seizure? Right. And then
They just stare at you. Love it.
after that, the first day that they're kind of done, they're like going on with their days, like they don't
Yeah.
have anything else. So but every once in a while I'll get someone who will go, so my brother has it or my uncle,
Wow.
and so they'll make some
Yeah.
connections or someone said, oh, I have that. And it's like, cool. So I was like,
Yeah.
and feeling proud at maybe for a moment, getting a moment to feel proud of something
Totally.
that's part of them. Because
Totally.
epilepsy, at least for me, because I've had it for so much of my life,
Yeah.
is very much part of me. Um, and it's hard not even to tear up in that whole thing, but that whole thing, it is very much part of who I am.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to be treated and feel like get my treatment for my epilepsy and get better, like
Mm.
we've tried, like there's a lot of trying and we're trying and it's changing and we're
Yeah.
trying, but it's still, so it's one of those things that I haven't lived without in a very long time.
Yeah.
And so,
Totally. And
yeah,
I
but
think that's such an important thing to note just because like when you say it's a part of me, and there because a lot of people will say, well, it doesn't define me and get very, which is like but I feel like acknowledging it's a part doesn't mean it defines, and like it's also like just figuring out where you're at with your own epilepsy. It's
mhm,
different for every person. Some people might be like, no, it's not really a part of me. It's, and kind of keep it separate. But that's like an individual choice that we all get to make. And I
mhm,
think sometimes the community gets caught up in, the how much of epilepsy is your person. And it's like, but that's what I appreciate what you're saying is that's up to you.
right.
Like that's what you're calling it, but that doesn't mean it's the same for every person with epilepsy.
You're right. Yeah. And yeah. So I feel like, when I share it to the classroom, like I said, it generally goes well. I've never had an issue with it or a parent of a student that be upset about it. So that hasn't come up in anything. And so, but also when I had seizures during the day, which I did every once in a while at this other school. And I remember one day I had a seizure and I heard the backstory of the student who got to like make the call to the front office. And
Mm-hmm.
she told her mom, don't worry, mom, I remained calm. And that just hearing that she was so proud of how she reacted to
That's
someone
so
having a seizure,
sweet.
because seizures, yes, they can be scary, but they're also that person's life. Like they're that
Yeah.
person's ongoing experience, right? And it's a very much a day to day, and we want to stay safe, but it is our like it's
Yeah.
that's my normal, I guess you could call it. So it's something that I deal with often.
Right.
Um, and yes, it tends to be more scary to you than it is to me. So,
Totally. Yeah, that and I think too part of it is because we're not there for the seizure. We don't
right,
see it.
100%.
So
Right.
like it can be and it is scary sometimes to see a seizure. Totally
Oh
understand that.
gosh.
But that's not our experience. We're just clocked out for that
Yeah.
moment. So,
Yeah.
like
Eh,
okay, I want to talk about how like different where you're at now with like
mhm.
your accommodations and everything and how that has changed and evolved over time because it seems like right now you're in a place where it's you can have a seizure, you can talk to your kids about it and everything is you're not worried about getting fired.
Right. Yeah. I
But it
have a
hasn't
pretty
always been the case,
right.
right? So I don't know if there's something you can speak to about, just some of the discrimination that you dealt with before working to get yourself to this place you're at now.
Right. So before there was a time when, so the nurse, the school nurse, who I'm always friends with. I always know who the school nurse is. We be friends, maybe not always friends, but we know well
That
because
is
we
a
have.
pro tip right there for anyone who works in a school, who's a teacher, anything. Be friends with the school nurse. 100%. Yes.
No, yeah, I mean, because I had to, like, I had to meet, like, introduce
Yeah.
myself every year we get it. And I was like, damn it, we got a new nurse, which meant I had to go introduce myself and see how they responded to the fact that I have epilepsy and that I'm going to teach. And that, guess what? I'm going to be the only adult in the room and it's going to be okay. Like that whole thing. And so I
Yeah.
wait and I'm like, okay. So yes, I have been through some times when the nurse has made decisions and calls on my part when I had a seizure, but mine are very short. They're at most like 30 seconds to a minute in process of what they are. But then I can come back pretty quickly and be able to continue on in my day. But I was being forced to take full days off or the rest of the day off. So like anytime I would have a seizure, I was forced to take the other half the day off. So I was forced to use sick days when I didn't think I needed to. Right. And so it's starting to use up all my sick days. I'm like, dude, I need these sick days
Yeah.
for days that I don't sleep well, and I just need to take the day because I'm sick, because I
Totally.
might have a seizure, like.
Right.
And so that I wasn't really good friends with that nurse. We had a little
Does
I don't know time when we just didn't get along that well because I
yeah.
didn't agree with her call, but her call trumped mine in that sense, and so
Wow.
I I eventually took it to HR and then with a union rep, and I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. And I had a note from my doctor that said, as long as you can do this, 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 and this, and the person's vitals after half an hour are fine. Like
Mhm.
they should be able to go back to work. And so,
Wow. Did that change it?
yeah, yeah, we got it set up,
Okay.
but I had to get like a doctor's note and then a meeting with HR to come back with a note that says, please let me stay at work and work.
Oh my god.
Which
Like
normally there's a lot of teachers that are like, okay, I'm just going to peace out for a little bit and
yeah.
just take a break because you're exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And so needing to just take a break. But I was like, no, I can't keep giving up these because I didn't know what it would look like the rest of the year. And I didn't know, you don't know what your epilepsy is going to look like next week sometimes. So,
Totally.
right.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but I love like I just want everyone to hear those steps, which was getting a note from your doctor, contacting HR, and I believe you said contacting union rep as well, just to
Well, yeah,
like
we have a union that was
yeah.
involved. So,
Yeah,
mhm,
which I think like none of that is easy. Like all of that takes time and effort
mhm,
and is a part of a fight. And I think that's something that's like it's a nice kind of guidebook to look at for anyone who is struggling with something like this, where it's like lean into the legal stuff that you can, you know,
mhm.
which is exactly what you did. And sometimes I feel like we just get so uh, exhausted from whatever, from either the epilepsy itself, the side effects of medications, the discrimination, the fighting to be at work, that sometimes it's hard to like put that battle forward, and it's
Right.
really amazing that you did.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel that was that same school that I was at. There was also a situation where there was another person with epilepsy there, but they had to retire early because theirs was so bad. And so the only experience all my new coworkers that I was meeting knew was this past experience of like, oh, you have epilepsy. That must mean you your seizures are so bad, you're gonna need to take time and you're gonna need to just retire early. And
Right.
and so like it's all about what is my past experience, right? And so like with epilepsy, and so if someone's
Hmm.
seen one or had an experience with a seizure or someone with epilepsy, it's tough because sometimes they base everything they know about that one situation or that one experience. And yeah, so I had to fight against that too at that specific school, was because
Wow.
it was they just had a past thought of what epilepsy looks like,
Yeah.
and so then we're very worried for me to be in the some of the other teachers were worried for me to be in the classroom. Luckily it didn't play with it. The admin was like understood. Well, they knew our union where like the rights that they shouldn't
Hmm.
touch that thing,
Yeah.
because But I also get to, have union reps at the places I work, and
Right.
that's super helpful.
So when we had met, you had mentioned that, sharing this information with your students felt very much like coming out as well. And I was hoping, and I think that's something that so many people can relate to, and it doesn't get talked about enough. And I was wondering if you could just elaborate on what you mean by that, and like what that looks like and feels like for you.
Yeah. Um, and so I identify as a non-binary queer person and am in the community. And so I've had to come out in times of my life throughout, where, I had to let them know that um, about my family, or anyways, that who I am.
Yeah.
And coming out is a hard process because sometimes you can hide from it. Like, people can make assumptions that you're straight and you can just hide, and, you don't need to exactly share it. There's other times when it becomes more obvious, and it is harder to hide from. But what I'm saying is you don't have to share it. It's something you don't have to share. Different from
Oh,
like skin color, like it's something very much that's high. And so I feel like when you have to come out to someone, though, you come out and then you wait for acceptance. And it's that like piece where you're just like, okay, and I'm going to tell you, here we go. And then you just wait. And then to
yeah. Like the
me,
PowerPoint.
it feels just like coming
Yeah.
out as someone with epilepsy, and I'm coming out, okay, here we go, and wait, and hope for acceptance. And it is.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky and almost always got full acceptance of, from my students, from coworkers, things like that. It's usually not a problem, but it does feel very similar, the coming out process, because you can make the decision on like, what do I hold in? What do I decide not to tell? What do I, because it's not something that you can visually see, right? And
Yeah.
it's a disability, it's a hidden disability, right? It's one that
Mhm.
you can't always see, um,
Mhm.
that this person has epilepsy. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, but it is still very difficult. And from, like I said, the inside is that all people want is acceptance. All people want is acceptance. And so, like, even every time I tell my students that I have epilepsy, I can still, that day is still super hard. It's usually the second day of school. And it's like I tell them and I wait, and it's all good. It's
Yeah.
only been all good. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that every day it still feels that way that I do that. So,
Yeah. No, I think that's so important because when you talked about it, I'm not gonna lie, it sounded like and you have said it's gotten easier over the years, but
yeah,
it also
it,
sounds like this is like piece of cake, no big deal.
no.
But so I really appreciate you sharing that it still is like this nerve-wracking thing.
Hmm.
I know that's definitely something I can relate to when I share I have epilepsy, especially when I was dating. That was the worst.
Oh,
But like just because there's a lot of pieces of shit I went out with. But I think like I just appreciate how you're talking about the acceptance and how it's something that everyone looks for and everyone wants. But at the same time, it's not something, whether you're talking, about your sexuality or your epilepsy, it's not necessarily something you have to share with everyone if you're not feeling like it's a safe space to do so,
right.
you
And
know?
that's often evaluated. Like if you're not in a safe space, you may not share that information.
Yeah.
Um, both things, really. Like if it's, I could see it happening, there's no need to share this right now because they may not hire me, like in interviews, or I may not
Right.
share. So you choose that, and it still is just as hard, it's still just as hard, both the coming out process, and also just,
Mhm.
coming out as a person with epilepsy. Like I, the hope, like I said, just the hope for acceptance, yeah,
Yeah.
is all you want.
Yeah, and it's so strange because it's just like because it's so true and I really appreciate the vulnerability and I've never really thought about it as like the hope for acceptance. And but that's something that I feel like we all struggle with, just being like, well, what are they gonna are they what is their reaction? And I know when I sometimes share with people I have epilepsy or that I had brain cancer or anything like that that's uncomfortable. I'm always trying to just make sure Like I'm throwing in enough jokes. I'm, being like casual enough about it just because I'm like, I don't want to freak them out. you know, I don't know if like that's wanting acceptance though. And it's something I've never thought about before. Or if I'm just trying to not scare people away. Is that the same thing? I don't know.
I mean, it could be a way of doing it, a way of like the coping mechanisms that go along with it,
Yeah, totally. Totally. So what's your relationship now like with the like since you said most of your seizures are at night, but
hmm
like when you have had seizures at the school you're at and you said you're friends with the nurse, like what does that look like?
If I have one at school, you mean? Like if I was
Yeah.
to have a seizure at school? Yeah.
Yeah.
When there have been times where I'll have one either like usually later in the day or something, and
Mhm.
there are times if I'm having it and it's not in a classroom and I just am on like the floor of my office or something like that. I afterwards will go check in with the nurse out of good energy. I'm just like,
Mm.
I should let you know this thing just happened. And then the nurse right now we have a good relationship, and then she's like, okay, they said I'm gonna let the admin know that you're gonna stay and you look
Mhm.
that your vitals are fine, and I said okay, just heads up, and it's mostly just in case like for some reason which I don't have, but if I was to have a seizure and then like I was having like repeated seizures on that same day or something like that. And I
Sure.
was like, I want to let someone know that this is going on.
Yeah.
Um,
This is
but
what I
usually,
love about you is that you protect yourself so well. Like this,
what do you mean?
well, like you had the seizure, you didn't have to tell anyone about it, right?
No, I could have stayed in no one else was in my office at the time. So
Yeah, like
I think,
and so you went, but you did tell someone about it because that's safer, because like now like, and it's documented too. Like so it's
hmm
protecting yourself probably legally. I don't know enough about it to say that, but also like just in case something happens again, this nurse, you now have someone who is aware, who is
hmm
medically qualified to help. I don't know. I just admire it so much because I feel like, and this, I don't know. So many of us are just like, it happened. We don't need to tell anyone. We can just move on,
Well,
you know?
usually I mean, I'm very stubborn. And I think that's how I've gotten to where I am. Um, it's like, I'm like, well, fuck it. Let's just move on. I'm going to try this new thing, do the thing.
Yeah.
And that's one reason I get really like frustrated. I'm like, no, we can do this or we can push through on this.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like for me, I think it's just my acceptance piece with my epilepsy. Like it's been enough
Mm.
years that I've been like, okay, this is who I am. You either accept me or you don't. And so I'm going to that's put it out there and be like, okay, here we are. It doesn't make it easier again, but it's just
Yeah.
what I do. So a lot of times, like if I'm going to go somewhere or if I'm with a new group, I make a decision like, do I let them know? Do I not let them know?
Yeah.
Um, if I teach summer school, sometimes I do because I'm with them for at least 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's a long time. That's a long enough time that something might happen.
Totally.
But mine usually happen when sleep is happening. So that office thing happened. I shouldn't tell anyone this, but when I was starting to doze off in my office,
Oh,
I felt
it
darn.
happens.
I know. So I was starting to doze off, and so I had a seizure because that happened. And so it's those
Yeah.
kind of things where, but what's helpful for that, like I let the nurse know for the next 2 classes, I'm going to be in this room because we move some of the room. We don't have like a set classroom for all of the teachers. So
Okay.
sometimes I'm in 2 classrooms within a day.
Hmm.
And so she knew where I'd be just in case. So if she heard like some message from that room, she knew pretty much what was going on. And so
Yeah. Ugh, see, I just love it. You've got someone who has your back, you know?
I guess so. Yeah, I never really think of it that way, but I guess yeah. I just sometimes think it's smarter to let more people know, even though it's really hard.
It is. It's so true. It's smarter but harder.
Yeah,
Yes,
don't
100%.
really want to let you know, but I'm gonna tell you, I guess. Yeah, so emotionally, I think the emotions it's not as harsh as it used to be when I had to try to work through what that looked like.
Yeah.
But and anymore, I'm just like, this is what we're doing. I'm gonna do it this way. Like I'm gonna let you know. Um,
I'm gonna
but
steal some of your confidence. Not steal it, borrow. No, not
you
because that,
go.
that that implies I'm taking it away. I'm just feeling very inspired by your like, you know what, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And I love it. And I want to just be like that more,
Well,
you know?
and I wish I was more like that on the outside. I'm talking about it this way because I feel like with my epilepsy, I think I'm pretty strong with that because I come into my appointments and I'm like, okay, what are we doing? What's happening today?
Yeah,
Like
totally.
let's move forward and
Uh-huh.
know that I know more about my body than my doctor does. My doctor knows a lot, but I know, and
Yeah.
so just that I can come in and feel this is how I'm feeling, this is my body, this is what it's doing, and that's
Yeah.
how a lot of my good the good nurses that I've had have done great because they're like, well, you tell me when you are feeling off or and so that to me, I'm like, yes, that's what I need, you know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
isn't
Someone to like trust you that you know how things feel in your own
well,
body.
I know when like there's days I'm
Yeah.
like today is a bad day, and then I maybe choose don't
Hmm.
go to not go to school that day, and it's that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Totally. Which is just smart.
So
Yeah. Charlie, thank you so much for being here. You are such an inspiration, and I feel like I know I'm going to take like parts of Charlieisms and put them in my phone so I remember them for when I tell people about my epilepsy. And just knowing that you're out there, you're doing it, you're teaching safely. You are such an inspiration for so many people, especially me, because I always thought that like teaching in epilepsy were impossible. And
well,
so I really
thank you.
appreciate you. Yeah. But before we go, I'm going to ask you 3 questions that have nothing to do with what we've been talking about. Number 1, what's your favorite color?
Like an indigo blue color, probably
Oh,
deep
very
indigo
pretty.
blue. Yes.
Nice. Love it. Number 2, if you could tell your newly diagnosed self one thing, what would it be?
I would say that let my that it is not the guiding factor of your life. That epilepsy
Hmm.
is now something that you need to work with, but it will not be like the the only thing or what guides everything else in your life from now on.
Whew, I'm tearing up. Yeah, and you are living proof of that, Charlie. Thank you for that. Number 3, what does it mean to you to be a friend?
Um, to be consistent, to be loyal, I think, um, to show up, I think is a big one. So
Yeah.
I said 3 things. So, you get more.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time to share your story, and thank you for just being so awesome out there in the world and just proving that we can do the things that we want to do.
Well, I don't think I'd ever give up teaching, so it's gonna somehow do it. So thank you.
Your students are very lucky. I hope they know that. I bet they do.